James had carefully planned his Saturday night. He liked his weekends structured with predictable routines and quiet moments. This evening, he had intended to cook dinner, read a book, and maybe catch up on a show he had been following. His apartment was spotless, the lights dimmed to his preferred golden hue, and a mug of tea waiting beside the chair he always chose. Yet, just as he was about to settle into his routine, a text buzzed on his phone. It was from Claire, his neighbor who lived 2 floors above. They had met casually, exchanging polite greetings in the elevator and sharing small talk about packages or the weather. But their interactions had always been light, almost invisible in the rhythm of daily life. Her text read, "Hey James, I know it's last minute, but do you want to join me for a walk along the river tonight? I could really use some fresh air." James stared at the message, unsure how to respond. A walk was not part of his planned evening. It was spontaneous, unpredictable, and that alone made him hesitate. He typed a quick response, then deleted it, then typed again. "Sure, I can do that." His thumb hovered over the send button for a moment before he finally pressed it. By the time he left his apartment, the sky had turned shades of rose and gold, the city slowly settling into evening. The streets were quiet, the sound of distant traffic blending with the occasional call of birds heading home. James felt a strange mix of anticipation and unease. He was a man who appreciated control. Yet here he was, venturing into an unknown night simply because a neighbor had asked. He met Claire near the entrance to the Riverside Park. She greeted him with a warm smile, her scarf loosely wrapped around her neck, and eyes that seemed to shine with subtle excitement. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice soft but steady. James nodded, trying to hide his nervousness behind a casual shrug. "I thought, maybe I could use a break from the usual routine." They started walking along the riverbank. The water was calm, reflecting the last golden rays of sunlight, creating patterns that shimmered and danced. There was a quiet beauty in the scene, something serene that made James feel a little lighter than he had in days. At first, neither of them spoke much. The silence was natural, peaceful, almost meditative. It wasn't awkward. It felt like a comfortable pause where the world outside didn't matter. After a few minutes, Claire broke the quiet. "I wasn't sure you'd say yes," she admitted, glancing at him. "You always seem so busy." James chuckled, a soft, slightly nervous sound. "Sometimes I surprise even myself," he replied. His words carried more weight than he intended. There was something in Claire's expression, the way her eyes held a spark of hope, that made him feel unexpectedly vulnerable. They continued walking, the conversation gradually picking up. Claire talked about her day at work, her small victories and challenges, and the books she had been reading. James listened, genuinely interested, and found himself laughing more than he expected. He noticed details he hadn't before, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the soft way she spoke, the occasional nervous brush of her hair behind her ear. Each small gesture seemed amplified in the evening's calm light, creating a subtle intimacy he hadn't anticipated. As they neared a small wooden bridge, the light from the city and the fading sunset cast gentle shadows across the path. James realized that tonight was no longer just a walk. It had become a quiet adventure, a moment away from his predictable life. The planned solitude of the evening had transformed into a shared experience, something that was alive and unexpected. Claire paused on the bridge, looking out over the gently flowing river. "I'm glad you came," she said softly, almost as if she needed to hear it aloud. James felt a warmth in his chest. "Me too," he admitted honestly. He had expected this night to be uneventful, but her presence had already shifted something inside him. The air was cooler now, carrying a faint scent of water and earth, and it made him feel awake in a way that solitude never had. They continued walking along the river, and the city lights began to flicker on, one by one, like stars being reflected in the water. James noticed the gentle rhythm of Claire's steps beside him, the way her laughter came freely, the ease of their conversation. He realized that what had started as a casual invitation had quietly grown into something meaningful. At a small bench overlooking the river, they stopped to rest. The lights reflected on the water, dancing in soft golden streaks. James felt a rare calmness, a moment of clarity. He realized he had spent so many nights following routines, controlling every detail, that he had forgotten the value of spontaneity, of allowing life to surprise him. Claire leaned slightly closer, her voice lower, more intimate than before. "Sometimes the best nights are the ones we don't plan," she said. James nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had plans for tonight, yes, but they felt irrelevant now. There was something in the unpredictability of the moment, in this unexpected companionship, that was richer than anything he could have scheduled. They stayed there for several minutes, quietly watching the river, the city lights, and the sky above. Neither spoke, but the silence was filled with something tangible. A sense of shared presence, an unspoken understanding. James realized that he was noticing Claire in ways he hadn't before, recognizing a warmth and vitality that made the evening feel more alive than any planned activity ever could. As the sun finally disappeared behind the skyline, casting the last of its golden light over the water, James felt a shift inside him. The structured plans of his evening had been replaced by an experience he could not have anticipated, a connection that was unexpected, yet wholly welcome. And as they continued their walk along the river, the night growing cooler and quieter, James understood that sometimes the most meaningful moments are the ones we never see coming. The night was only beginning, and he had no idea where it would lead. But for the first time in a long while, he was eager to find out. As the night deepened, James and Claire continued walking along the river, their steps slow but unhurried, matched to the gentle rhythm of the water flowing beside them. The city had quieted down, the usual hum of traffic replaced by the occasional distant horn and the soft rustle of leaves in the cool breeze. For the first time in weeks, James felt a sense of calm he hadn't realized he had been missing. The night, unplanned and spontaneous, carried a quiet magic, and he could feel it weaving between him and Claire. Claire had a way of noticing the little things, James realized. She pointed out how the street lamps reflected on the water, turning the river into a moving canvas of light. She laughed softly at the way a stray leaf floated past, and James caught himself smiling, genuinely enjoying the moment. He had never been this aware of someone beside him, and it both surprised and intrigued him. "I like nights like this," Claire said, her voice soft, almost contemplative. "Not planned. No expectations, just walking and noticing things." James nodded. "It's easy to forget that sometimes," he replied. "We get so used to schedules and routines that we miss the small things that matter." Her eyes met his briefly, and for a second, he felt a strange electricity in the silence that followed. It wasn't romantic in the flashy, dramatic sense. It was quieter, deeper, a sense of recognition, of being seen in a way that felt rare. They reached a small park bench nestled under a tree, its branches swaying gently above them. They sat, letting the river stretch out before them. The city lights reflected on the water, shimmering in patterns that were mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. James felt an unexpected desire to pause, to linger in this moment, and to let go of the night's original plans. Claire leaned back slightly, her eyes fixed on the water. "Do you ever feel like life is too fast?" she asked. "Like everything happens and you barely notice it?" James thought about it. He had spent countless evenings alone, planning every detail of his weekend to perfection. And yet, it was the unplanned moments, the ones like this walk, that made him feel truly alive. "Yeah," he admitted. "Sometimes I realize I've been moving too quickly, worrying too much, and missing what's right in front of me." Her lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. "That's why I asked you to come tonight," she said softly. "I needed someone to slow down with me, even if just for a little while." James felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't anticipated. He had expected the night to be quiet, perhaps even dull, but sitting here with Claire, he realized it was anything but. The night was unfolding naturally, full of unspoken connections and quiet moments that mattered more than words could express. They spoke about small things at first, books they liked, favorite spots in the city, little memories from childhood. But slowly their conversation deepened. Claire shared stories of challenges she had faced at work, moments when she had felt uncertain or overlooked. James listened, genuinely engaged, offering words of understanding and encouragement. He found himself sharing as well, revealing small fears and hopes he hadn't voiced in a long time. "It's strange," James said at one point, "how easy it is to talk to someone you just met, yet feel like you've known them for much longer." Claire nodded. "Sometimes it's the unexpected connections that matter most," she replied. "The ones you don't plan for, but that change everything." He noticed how her gaze lingered on him as she spoke, and he realized that this night had already shifted something within him. He had come expecting a quiet walk, a brief escape from routine. Instead, he had found a companion, someone who made him feel alive and seen. The air grew cooler as the night advanced, and James offered his jacket, though Claire declined with a laugh. "I think the river breeze keeps me awake," she said. He smiled, feeling a simple joy in her presence. They walked further along the river, the bridge lights twinkling like tiny stars above the water. James felt a growing awareness that this night would be remembered, not for the plans he had made, but for the spontaneity and connection it brought. Every shared glance, every laugh, every silence filled with understanding carried a weight that surprised him. At one point, Claire stopped to watch a family of ducks gliding on the river. She pointed out their tiny movements, and James found himself leaning over the railing, observing alongside her. They laughed softly at how seriously she seemed to care about the ducks, and in that laughter, James felt the night solidifying into something unexpectedly special. As they resumed their walk, their steps brought them closer to a small pier that extended into the river. The boards creaked lightly beneath their feet, and the city lights reflected in the water, painting it in soft golds and blues. James realized he had not thought about his original plan since leaving his apartment. They had become irrelevant. This night, unplanned and unpredictable, had taken over. Claire paused at the edge of the pier, looking out at the shimmering water. James stopped beside her, feeling the quiet intimacy of the moment. "I'm glad you came," she said, almost as if confessing a secret. James felt a surge of warmth. "Me too," he said honestly. He hadn't expected to feel this connection so quickly, but the night had a way of unfolding in its own rhythm, each moment deeper than the last. The river flowed gently, reflecting their shadows and the lights above. Neither spoke for several moments, but the silence was rich with understanding. James realized he was noticing Claire in ways he had not before. Her expressions, her gestures, the small details that revealed who she was. As the night continued, the riverbank grew quieter. Most people had gone home, leaving only a few distant figures. The calm of the night allowed their conversation and presence to stretch naturally, without rush or distraction. James felt a contentment he hadn't expected, an awareness that sometimes the unplanned moments carried the most significance. Claire leaned slightly closer, the cool air brushing past them. "I think tonight is one of those rare nights," she whispered, "where everything feels right, even if it's not planned." James nodded, feeling a deep resonance with her words. The night, he realized, had become something extraordinary, not because of where they were, but because of who was there with him. The unexpected connection, the warmth of companionship, the simple joy of shared presence had transformed an ordinary evening into a memory that would linger. As they walked back toward the city lights, James felt a mixture of anticipation and calm. He didn't know what the rest of the night would hold, but he was no longer concerned with his plans. The unexpected had arrived, and he welcomed it fully. The river, the lights, and the quiet companionship of Claire had already changed the trajectory of his evening, and perhaps his perspective on life. The night had only begun, yet already it felt timeless, a moment suspended in the gentle flow of the river and the quiet magic of human connection. James understood that some of the most meaningful experiences were not planned, not scheduled but discovered. And tonight, he had discovered something he would never forget. The night had fully settled, and James and Claire were still walking along the riverbank, the city lights casting long reflections across the water. The rhythm of their footsteps matched the soft lapping of the river, creating a serene harmony that made James forget about the quiet evening he had originally planned. Every moment felt alive, unplanned, and entirely different from the routine he was used to. He noticed the way Claire's hair caught the glow of the streetlights, the subtle gestures she made when she spoke, and the way her laughter seemed to echo softly across the water. As they approached a small cobblestone bridge, Claire stopped, turning toward him. "Do you ever feel like the night itself is trying to tell you something?" she asked, her voice gentle but thoughtful. James looked at her, intrigued. "Like it has its own plans, not ours?" she continued. He considered it for a moment and smiled. "Maybe," he admitted. "Maybe it's reminding us to slow down, to notice what's right in front of us." The bridge overlooked a wider stretch of the river, where the water moved more swiftly, reflecting the twinkling city lights like liquid stars. They leaned on the railing side by side, shoulders nearly touching, without really acknowledging it aloud. James felt a quiet tension, not uncomfortable, but the kind that comes from being close to someone and realizing the moment is more significant than it seems. Claire broke the silence, pointing to a boat drifting slowly down the river. "See that? It's like it's floating through time, just going wherever the current takes it. Sometimes I wish life could be more like that," she said. James followed her gaze, watching the small boat, and he felt an unexpected pang of longing. Not for the boat itself, but for the freedom in her words, the honesty she spoke so naturally. He realized he rarely spoke so freely with anyone, and there was a gentle beauty in this ease between them. They continued across the bridge and found themselves walking toward a small pier that stretched over the river. The wooden planks creaked beneath their feet, each sound echoing softly over the water. James noticed the faint smell of damp wood mingled with the fresh scent of the river, and it made the night feel even more intimate. It was no longer just a walk. It had become a journey into something unfamiliar, yet comforting. As they reached the edge of the pier, Claire leaned slightly on the railing, gazing at the reflection of the city lights in the water. James stood beside her, and for a moment, they simply watched. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from a nearby garden, and he realized how peaceful it was to simply be present. "I'm glad you didn't stick to your plans," Claire said quietly, her words almost lost in the gentle rush of the river. James smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "I'm glad too," he admitted. "I didn't expect tonight to feel like this, but it does. More than I imagined." He realized then that what he was feeling wasn't just the enjoyment of good company. It was a recognition that some moments carry weight because they catch you off guard. This night had done that. It had shifted his perspective, making the ordinary extraordinary. They moved a little further along the pier, and Claire suddenly turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Have you ever met someone and felt like you should have known them longer? Like there's a part of you that recognizes them, even if your mind says otherwise?" she asked. James looked into her eyes, sensing the vulnerability behind the question. "Yes," he said softly. "I think I know what you mean." He realized that this feeling, this quiet, growing connection, was unlike anything he had planned for the evening. It was unexpected, yet undeniable. Claire laughed lightly, a sound that seemed to linger in the night air. "I'm not usually this open," she admitted, "but tonight feels different." James nodded, understanding completely. He felt the same way. The structured, controlled evening he had imagined was gone, replaced by something alive and unpredictable. Something meaningful. They continued walking, and the pier ended at a small overlook where the river widened. James noticed a few distant boats with tiny lights, and the reflections seemed to dance in the water, echoing the quiet excitement in his own heart. "It's beautiful," he murmured, more to himself than to Claire. She glanced at him and smiled. "Sometimes beauty sneaks up on you when you least expect it," she said. Her words resonated deeply with him. He realized that tonight wasn't about the plan he had made. It wasn't about schedules or routines. It was about the unexpected connection forming between them, something that couldn't have been scheduled or anticipated. As they lingered at the overlook, the conversation became more personal. Claire shared small, intimate stories about her childhood, the dreams she once had, and the little fears she carried with her. James listened intently, feeling an unusual openness rising in him. He spoke too, revealing thoughts and reflections he had kept to himself. There was a trust growing between them, subtle but undeniable, and it made the night feel heavier with meaning. A gentle breeze blew across the water, causing ripples to shimmer in the light. James turned slightly to Claire, noticing the way her hair moved and how her eyes sparkled with the reflection of the city lights. He realized that this night, unplanned, spontaneous, and quiet, had transformed into something he would remember. Something unexpected had arrived, and it had changed everything. They walked back toward the pier's entrance, their conversation shifting between lighthearted jokes and thoughtful reflections. James realized he was laughing more freely than he had in weeks, feeling a joy that wasn't forced but natural. The night had become a shared experience, something richer than any planned evening of solitude could have offered. Near the pier's exit, Claire stopped and turned toward him. "I don't want tonight to end just yet," she said softly. James smiled, feeling the same. "Me neither," he admitted. They lingered there, caught in a moment of quiet connection, aware of the river flowing behind them and the city around them, yet entirely focused on the space between them. James noticed how the night had shifted his perspective. The careful plans, the schedules, the quiet evenings alone, they weren't bad, but they weren't this. This was alive, unpredictable, and full of potential. And as he looked at Claire, he realized that sometimes the best moments came unannounced, arriving quietly and filling you with warmth you didn't know you were missing. Finally, they resumed their walk, this time slower, savoring the night. Each step carried a weight of intimacy, a sense of discovery, and the acknowledgement that the evening had changed them both. The unexpected had arrived, and it was undeniable. James understood in that moment that life's most meaningful experiences were often those that could not be planned, those that appeared quietly and demanded your attention. By the time they reached a quiet part of the riverbank, away from the city lights, James realized he had completely forgotten about the night he had originally planned. He had expected solitude and predictability, but what he had found was connection, something deep, genuine, and unexpected. He glanced at Claire, and in her eyes, he saw the same acknowledgement of the moment's significance. The river flowed beside them, calm and reflective, and James felt a quiet certainty. Tonight would stay with him. The laughter, the conversation, the shared silences, all of it would linger in memory, a testament to the magic of unplanned encounters. The night had surprised him, awakened something he hadn't known he needed, and left him eager for whatever came next. And as they slowly walked back toward the city lights, James realized that sometimes the plans you make are nothing compared to the moments that choose you. Tonight had been one of those moments, delicate, unexpected, and unforgettable. The night had grown deeper, and James and Claire were walking back from the river, their steps slower now, as if unwilling to let the evening end. The city lights glimmered around them, casting long shadows on the pavement, and the cool night air carried a quiet stillness that made every sound. Their laughter, the soft rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, feel amplified. James realized he had completely forgotten about the plans he had made for the night. Everything he thought he wanted had shifted, replaced by something alive and unpredictable, something he didn't want to end. Claire's voice broke the quiet. "I'm glad I asked you to come," she said softly, her eyes reflecting the golden light from the street lamps. James turned to her, smiling gently. "I'm glad I said yes," he replied. "I didn't expect tonight to be like this, to feel like this." There was a pause, heavy with meaning, as both of them considered what had grown between them over the past few hours. They reached a small park bench near the end of the riverside path. The bench overlooked a quiet stretch of water where the city lights reflected in gentle ripples. They sat side by side, the silence between them comfortable now, filled with unspoken understanding. James felt a warmth in his chest, a soft fluttering that he hadn't felt in a long time. The evening had taken him far from his predictable routines, into a moment that felt unexpectedly profound. Claire leaned slightly toward him, her voice quiet but earnest. "You know, it's strange how life works. We think we have control, but sometimes the best moments, the ones that change you, they just appear." James nodded, feeling the truth of her words. He thought about the night, how he had left his apartment expecting solitude, but found companionship, laughter, and a sense of connection that surprised him. This night had rewritten the story he thought he was living. The two of them watched the river in silence for a few moments. The water flowed steadily, reflecting the lights of the city in patterns that seemed almost deliberate, as if the universe itself had arranged the scene. James felt a shift inside him, a realization that life's unplanned moments often carried the most weight, the deepest meaning. Claire turned toward him, a soft smile playing on her lips. "I never expected to meet someone tonight and feel like this," she admitted. Her eyes searched his, looking for a response. James felt a lump in his throat, a mixture of vulnerability and honesty he hadn't anticipated. "Neither did I," he said quietly. "But I'm glad. I really am." The air around them was cool, carrying the faint scent of the river and the nearby gardens. James noticed how her hair caught the light, the gentle way she shifted on the bench, the quiet determination in her voice. Every small detail seemed magnified, meaningful, like the night itself was emphasizing the importance of this unexpected connection. They began talking again, this time more openly, sharing dreams and small secrets they hadn't told anyone else. James spoke about his love for quiet evenings, for reading, for simple routines, and how he had begun to feel something missing in his life, until tonight. Claire shared her own moments of longing, times when she had felt unnoticed, unacknowledged, and how a simple invitation to walk had turned into a night she wouldn't forget. The conversation was intimate without being intrusive, a delicate balance that made both of them feel safe and understood. James realized that he had never experienced such an easy, genuine connection before. There was no pressure, no expectation, just a shared presence that felt rare and valuable. After some time, Claire suggested they walk a little further, toward a small overlook she had spotted earlier. The overlook provided a clear view of the city skyline reflected on the river, lights twinkling like stars scattered across the water. They stood side by side, shoulders nearly touching, and James felt a quiet thrill at their closeness. It wasn't dramatic or forced. It was simply the natural outcome of a night spent in unplanned companionship. "I feel like I could stay here forever," Claire whispered, her voice almost lost in the soft sounds of the city. James smiled, understanding the sentiment. "Me too," he admitted. He felt the night pressing on him in the best way possible, a gentle reminder that life's most beautiful moments were those you didn't see coming. They stood there for a long while, watching the city and river, talking intermittently, laughing softly, sharing small glances that carried meaning beyond words. James felt a shift in his perspective, a realization that he had been too focused on plans and schedules, missing the richness of spontaneous connection. This night, with its unpredictability and quiet intimacy, had awakened something he didn't even know he was missing. As the night grew cooler, they started heading back, walking slowly along the riverside path, savoring the final moments of this extraordinary evening. James noticed how easy it felt to be near Claire, how her presence brought warmth and calm, and how the ordinary act of walking could feel so charged with meaning. The city around them seemed softer, quieter, almost respectful of the fragile magic that had unfolded between them. When they reached the spot where the river path met the street, James paused. "Tonight, I didn't expect it to feel like this," he said softly. Claire looked at him, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "Neither did I," she admitted. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe the unexpected is the best part." James nodded, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't had before. The night had shown him that life's unplanned moments could be the most meaningful, the ones that leave a lasting impression. He realized he wanted to carry this feeling forward, to remain open to surprises, and to cherish the connections that appear when least expected. Claire smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you for walking with me tonight," she said. "I'm glad you said yes." James returned the smile, a warmth spreading through his chest. "I'm glad too, more than I can say." They stood there for a few more moments, neither wanting to break the spell of the evening. Then, as if by mutual understanding, they began walking toward their respective apartments, the city lights guiding them home. James felt a quiet excitement, a soft anticipation of future moments. Yet he also appreciated the completion of this night. It had been unexpected, intimate, and beautiful in ways that plans could never create. As he reached his apartment, James paused at the door, looking back down the street. He thought of Claire, of their conversation, of the quiet moments on the river, and of the laughter that had filled the night. He realized that sometimes the best nights are the ones you don't plan, the ones that surprise you, teach you, and leave you with memories that linger long after the moment has passed. With a deep breath, James stepped inside, feeling lighter, warmer, and more aware of the beauty in life's unplanned experiences. The night had been transformed, unexpectedly and completely, and he knew he would carry it with him. A reminder that even the simplest moments can become unforgettable when shared with the right person. Thanks for listening. See you in next one.